What's up, Shred Sexies? Welcome back. Death to the Fingers. I want to talk about some revelations I basically made when I was practicing chords, chord progressions, and sort of chord charts and whatnot. And I realized very early on I couldn't take a 1 and then a 5 chord and then a 4 chord and another 1 chord and string them together and it would sound good. It doesn't sound bad or whatever it is. It just sounds really, really rudimentary. And I was like, oh, okay, if I do this and then go to this first inversion and then down to another first inversion and then to the root, then to the 4, 5, and the 1, well, all of a sudden, I've got real music on my hands. And so how do you go from this sort of rudimentary information to the ideas where you're like, okay, I need to go to a first inversion here. Oh, there's the G major. Obviously, there's F major as the first inversion. And again, C major now. And we're going to talk about some of those basic ideas. Number one is the basic cadence. Okay, so just moving from one chord to another, like 3 to 1. So that kind of stuff, maybe I'm going to move from 6 to 1. Don't tell me that's not badass. Down to the F. Right to maybe up to the 3rd degree. Right, so in that case, I just played the 3rd degree here. Basic chord movement up to the 5, but I played the 3rd inversion, right? Which is another huge sort of revelation, this idea. We have the inversions, sure. Basically the same chord played 3 times, where I just take the note and put it on the end and move through it. I can do it with both too. Whether it's major or minor or diminished, of course. Or augmented. Nice. As soon as I add the 7 there, it just takes the tension of that augmented off. It's just another little tip there. But essentially, you get the idea is the inversions in and of themselves are definitely useful. But once you start to factor them in terms of a chord progression, well, now you got something really working, right? Then I go C, G, F, C. And then I start up here again, C. Now I need G again, right? So that's going to basically put me here. F and C again. Now, I'm doing it on the keyboard here to show you that these things basically move linearly. And of course, it'll be the exact same situation when you're talking about moving on the guitar. You'll move from this G type here into the one from Phrygian. Okay, and then you'll do another one from Phrygian. So realistically speaking, that's the Ionian position, moving to Locrian, playing the first inversion major there, then moving down again into the Aeolian position, playing the first inversion major there before ending up with a second inversion at the Mixolydian position. Now listen, obviously I understand that stuff, but if you didn't understand what I just said there, sit down and sort of figure that out. This configuration is 1-3-5. This one is 3-5-1, 3-5-1, and then 5-1-3. Of course, I go 3-5-1 and then 1-3-5. And yes, this is with respect to C major down here. This is basically going to be 3-5-1 of the G major scale. Or the G major chord, sorry. And of course, down one more. Yeah, that's going to be the 3-5-1 of F major. Okay, so that's a huge one. Next one is obviously starting to spread the chords out. So instead of doing this solid one, now I'm going to drop the third here, add an octave, and tack it on top. Which is good, but I can also start to mess around with them by adding sixths and fourths. Obviously, very useful tool by just layering a sixth and then playing another interval on top. Now, you can do that fairly easily with respect to the guitar if you start thinking outside the box kind of situation. Hugely beneficial to you because now it breaks up these very rudimentary chords into something a lot more sophisticated. Of course, taking advantage of that's 1, 5, 7, and then obviously adding the 9. Omitting the third there, I could, but of course by taking it off, and that gets me really to the last point that I want to talk about revelations, because I don't want to go too far into the weeds with this because it's just going to get overly complex and confusing. Realistically speaking, you're supposed to sort of start off with this standard diatonic theory where you're moving through each degree of the major scale with these triads or dominant sevens, right? And then start to arrange them in a way that sounds nice. So I might start off here with the 2 chord. And I'm like, oh, look, the 6 chord is here. So why not grab the 6 chord, essentially, right? Which is going to give me this one. And then I'm like, oh, look, the 6 chord's got the 3 chord part of it, right? And then all I have to do is now jump up here. You see that one right there? Nails it, right? By adding in the 6th here. And one more time. 7th, or I could have went with the straight octave. Or the perfect 5th. I used the major 7th there, just to add a little bit more tension to it. Why not? And plus, it sounds cooler when you're going. It sounds a little more devastating when you're doing it way down there. Right, and of course, you can use that to your advantage. Don't be afraid to sort of mix and match these things in unconventional ways. Obviously, if I take the C and D major now, I get the Lydian situation. Right, so it's a very useful tool there, essentially. Again, that's sort of born out of the idea that you got this 7, the 9, of course, the 11. Got to raise it up to the sharp there. And the 13, again, pretty rough, but if as soon as I move to the minor, I'm like, okay, well, in this case, that's nice, that's nice, that's nice. Those ones all work. So, I mean, you know, that's why you have to catalog things in your mind. Be like, when it comes to the major chord, I got the triad, major 7, major 9, major add 9, right? Then you got the major with the sharp 11, right? Adding on this now basic major interval here from the D major chord. And of course, employing some simple common sense and voice leading. Now change this bad boy up here. Incredibly useful tool for basically messing around with chords. And last but not least is basically starting to work in chord progressions like 2-5-1. In this case, we're going to use 2-5-1, but also 1-4-5, and there are many, many more, of course. To start to enhance your chord progressions. So starting off here in 6, 5, four, to 2 here, to 5, with the dominant 7 now, and of course, notice me adding in that, yes, flavor from the major 7. Very subtle. You can almost not hear it there. That's a Johann Sebastian Bach trick. He does it all the time. Basically slips in these very dissonant sounds, but it just makes the chord sound that much more awesome. Trust me, right now it might be a little jarring from you, or jarring for you, but over time you'll be like, yeah, that actually sounds a lot better, right? So that's very important. And once you get to these positions, you're like, okay, there's my 4th degree, right? Rather than go to the plagal cadence, I can sort of sit here. I can be like, okay, I'll rearrange this one. So you see what I mean? Like, that's awesome. The sus2 there, essentially moving down to this major 7 variation into, again, the G, where you're going to sort of, and of course, with the 4th here in the bottom, right? And of course, by getting this whole 2nd inversion at the bass there, you just take it over the top, right? And then of course, just practice essentially improvising with these simple chord ideas. Watch me climb up here. Done deal, right? So that's just me basically arpeggiating it. You could do that with just your standard sort of finger picking kind of idea. And of course, you're going to strum some out too. You can also do the sort of... Notice again, a huge part of that would be you hitting some bass notes and stuff like that, and just sort of moving around again with these simple chords. Notice there. always using this C note as the pedal tone, in this case C major. This is again give me this G sus kind of flavor, right? And so on and so forth. By doing that, it just instantly, that's basically A minor to a large degree, right? And then start letting the bass note. See the three different ones there? You got C, then A, then F. F, A, C. That is, yeah, F major 7 kind of situation again. Okay, now I know that you're going to be like, okay, well, when are you going to show us on the guitar? I'm going to show you this kind of stuff, and I have showed you with free play and stuff like that. It's just slightly different, but you're seeing the exact same principles, me using the same things I did in free play by using bass notes and the construction of triads. In this case, that's just me spreading it out. Obviously, from this major 7, I could do it again. And all I'm doing is practicing that basic principle on the guitar. I go from this triad to this one, while always holding down this bass note, and I can do it one more time. Yikes. And then, of course, resolving. Get your cadences in. Okay, another one there, so on and so forth, and then last but not least is just the voice leading. Then I hope this lesson helped break your mind out of probably a predictable rut that we all basically get into, which is just be like, oh, follow the chord charts without actually thinking and stuff, and instead start to break these chords down into the constituent parts and figure them out. Be like, oh, there's the 5-1 relationship, there's the 4-1 relationship, and just see that stuff on the actual guitar itself. And start with the G type or the C type and be like, oh, there it is right there. And once you start doing things like that, I guarantee you, it'll train your ear and it'll just hear them on its own automatically. And then, of course, you'll be way ahead of the game. It's not about remembering chord shapes or chord progressions or anything else. It's just being able to start on a chord and go to another one. Once you start doing stuff like that and just basically working away slowly, methodically, and ramping up the complexity of your ideas, you'll find that a lot of the simple stuff, by just holding out a bass note and adding something else, is the secret sauce you're looking for, and it's not that complicated. A bass note with a minor interval on top. So C, B, D. And you're like, oh, okay, I can do that. And there you are. You're like, okay, start from this one, go up to the next one. There's none of these chords sound bad. And then, of course, start on the next one. Next one. Next one. I think you've heard this kind of stuff before many times, and now that you're seeing me actually do it on the keyboard, where I'm just holding down a bass note, starting with the root triad and then extending out, essentially just climbing up using these minor thirds, right? You're good to go. And of course, if you're seeing it like this, you could, or you can be up here. Now all of a sudden you can, or just the standard, right, from the inversions and whatnot. If you're playing that here, you can be like, oh, okay, and then again here, up. You see what I mean? Just all of the stuff I just showed you, from taking this to the 5th degree and from to the 4th degree, and then just layering this note over top of it, all of a sudden, absolutely killer. Okay, and you're not going to get that kind of juice and magic essentially when you're sort of like stuck in just doing other things. You have to break out of the habit of expecting someone else to tell you what to do, and instead sort of go out there and seek this stuff out. Who are you as a musician? And what can you do? Can you just sit down and be like, okay, another one sort of just messing around more and more, and obviously starting to borrow chords. Like this B flat diminished flavor, or there's so many more, like, then of course, again. Notice again, moving to the next notes. Very similar to when I go from a 4th to a 3rd. And then you're like, 7th there, 6th, into 3rds. Again, mastering all the intervals. And there it is. That's the end of the video for sure now. I appreciate every single one of you. Don't think of music as like paint by numbers. A lot of it's experimentation. It's just taking chances, and lessons like this, although at first you're like, it's unconventional because he just kind of goes off and shows you a bunch of things. Instead, let the music wash over you and be like, how does that actually going to affect my next practice session? Thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate every single one of you. Get out there and explore how triads and dominant 7 and chord progressions can be combined together in more creative ways rather than just playing the standard chord arrangements. Start to expand them with a bass note. And then start doing spread chords, and of course, finally, compound triads. Done. See you in the next one.